night. Good evening. Good evening. Get this stuff stopped here. All right. All right. Good evening. It's January 9th, the second week of the second Tuesday live show of the 2024 year. Cannot believe the time has gone by like that. It's crazy. Yeah, it's see Steven's on. Hey Steven, how you doing? Hopefully sounds good. I think I got all that stuff worked out. Yeah, it's down here in Florida. We're getting blown away with winds currently, so you may hear the garage door rattling at different times. It's been 30, 40 mile an hour winds for the last 24 hours. At least no, tornadoes. We had a tornado in Fort Lauderdale the other night, and just a crazy bunch of weather going on right now. And I guess Panama City got really bad today, or maybe last night. But I saw on Mike's Weather Channel he was showing the destruction in Panama Beach. Crazy. And this weather has affected all of us. It affected us this weekend. I was hoping to give you guys great news on the Studebaker running its first 7-second pass, and Bill Bolus running in the 8s for the first time with his car, and unfortunately Mother Nature won. We were 20 miles from the track and rained out. So we're trying to put some dates together to bring that stuff for you. There's a possibility we're going to run Bill's car in Orlando on Friday. So that may be a possibility for next week. We can talk about that. And in our rush to get to the track on time, we got the turbo on the Studebaker, but I did not get a picture of it with the ceramic coating and all that stuff done. It looked real good, bolted right up. That was all good. But that's about as far as we made it. Dragged it in the trailer, drove 25 miles, and turned around and drove back to Leo's and dropped the car off and headed back to the East Coast. So that was kind of a bummer. But got some stuff going on. Not a tremendous amount. We had to do a bunch of moving around in the shop and getting cars moved around so I could get the trailer emptied out. And I was planning on doing a walk around video in the shop, but with all the winds and chance, possibility of rain, I have the shop packed with cars, so I wasn't able to do that. I'm going to get that done for next week. I definitely want to give you guys a walk around what we got going on here as far as equipment and how I don't know if you're really interested in how I arrange all the vehicles in here, but that's what something we were looking forward to doing. But that was pretty much it with that. We got the air intake done on the Camaro, so I'm going to put a little slideshow together for that. Came out real well. I'm really pleased with it. Joe hasn't seen it in its entirety. He saw when I had the first section done, the dual-in Y-pipe that goes into the throttle body. But now I've got the heat shields made and the air cleaners all put in. Got some small things done on the car. Didn't really take any videos or pictures of that stuff because it's all kind of boring stuff. Got the headlight doors working right, and got the mirrors on, and got the dashboard all bolted in. So that's all kind of not really much to look at, but I got that done this week. And the shifter cable is going to be here tomorrow, so I'll finally be able to get the car out and drive it. So we'll get some video on driving and how to set up the Holley Terminator. We'll do a little discussion about that. And obviously, since the trailer was emptied out to put Leo's car in, the Vedhawk is in the shop, covered up, and the Nascar is outside with a waterproof car cover over that. And parts are starting to roll in on that, so that's exciting. We're starting to get stuff. We just need the rotating assembly, and we can get the engine assembled and installed. Need to clean the car out. That'll be next thing as soon as we can get a break in this weather, so we can have some clean stuff to go on. So Ryan's on. Hey Ryan, how you doing? Yeah, so that's something we'll go ahead and put a little slideshow in the parts. It's not a whole lot to look at, but we're definitely getting together with that car. So we've got. I didn't get pictures of. I got the block. I got the cylinder heads. Cylinder heads are done and ready to go. I got the intake manifold. The stuff that I'll show you that stuff when we do the slideshow. I got a transmission for it. I got a bell housing for it. The Holley Terminator X is on its way. Right? That's right. We're going to fuel inject it. I was originally going to put a carburetor on it, but the MSD 6014, which is a multi-spark box for coil unplug or coil near plug engines, so you can run carburetors on them. It does spark only. Those are back ordered, and I couldn't find a good deal on a carburetor, and I just couldn't see spending $800 for a carburetor that I really don't want to put on an engine anyway. So I decided just to go ahead and put a Terminator X Stealth on it. So it's a Holley looking carburetor or throttle body with injectors in it. So it'll still be able to run the Cal air cleaner that they would run in cup, but it will be fuel injected. So I like that a lot more. Now that allows me to go ahead and put E85 in the car, because now the fuel system will be closed off from atmospheric air. So that's exciting. Trying to figure out when we're going to run Leo's car. We're thought about doing something this week, but it doesn't look like it's going to work out. And the Orlando test session that we're going to is just too much to get the Studebaker there, because it's 2.5 hours to Leo's from my place, and then it's going to be another 2.5 up to Orlando, and then when we go home, we got to reverse that whole procedure, 2.5 back to Leo's, and then 2.5 back to my house. So that's just too much. So we're going to have to try to find another date that we can get over to Bradenton, and we'll see. Mike Brill was supposed to run his car over there too, is a comp dragster, so we'll see when we can get somewhere we can get him some laps, and we'll go from there. So I want to give a shout out to Drew at Absolute Automotive. Funny story, I put a post on Facebook looking for a place to get 200 treadwear autocross tires, and then of course, a couple people said, Discount Tire and Tire Rack, and I already knew those sources. That was not a problem, but I really felt that I should try to help out a local business. So my whole meaning for doing that was to try to get a local tire source to get the tires from. So Drew reached out to me. Multiple people reached out, but Drew actually got the tires and got them for me, and did real good. I appreciate that. And it's funny, he used to hang out in my shop when he was in high school, and between my shop and another race shop and performance shop in Boca Raton, Oaks Racing, he decided that he wanted to get in the automotive industry make a living for himself, and that's what he did. And he's got a real nice looking shop down in Boca, working on European cars, and looks like he's doing well. And I appreciate him hooking me up with tires. I wasn't really looking for a huge deal. I mean, tires, there's not much break in them. I just wanted to get somebody local to business, and he did me right and got me a good price on top of it. So if anybody needs tires in South Florida, I got the Falcon RT 615K Plus. But if you want to get any other tires, I'm sure you can get multiple, pretty much any brand you want. Look him up. I'll have to get his phone number and information. I'll put it in the comments or in the description. I just got back and kind of running behind, so I wasn't able to get something put together officially for him. And I'm going to go ahead and give him some shout outs on Facebook also. But yeah, it worked out real well. So why don't I go ahead and I'll show the parts anyway. So these are the part. Obviously, that's the car. Check the sound. Good. So I wanted to keep the same look, but still have a 200 tread wear. So as you can see there, I found a American Racing 17 by 10 wheel, and I think it might be 9.5, but that's the biggest I could get. It would have the bolt pattern and everything I needed. And with the Falcon tire, it's only going to be like 0.8 shorter than the 27-inch tall Goodyear Eagles that are on the car now. So I think that's going to work out real well. And there's some of the other parts. I got a set of Taurus headlights, so I'm going to start working on making the shape for those to cut out the front nose to put the headlights in the position where those headlights are. And so now we're slowly getting the parts together. We got a DOT approved tire. We'll get the headlights and taillights in the car, turn signals, and once I get the engine and stuff in there, we'll go up to the DMV and work on getting a VIN number applied to it. You can see in the picture there, we got a new RJS fuel cell because that was missing out of the car. Pile of All-Star hood pins. All the pins that are on the car were steel and they were busted and rusted out and stuff. And I got a set of All-Star CT 525 motor mounts, which I think are going to allow me to bolt the 6-liter right into the stock Laughlin Racing chassis. So we'll see how that all works out. If I get a chance, maybe I'll put a dummy block together and try to fit a block in and see what it looks like. But that's the updates for there. Looking for seats. I found a place that has for building model cars the blue and the red. Supposedly it's the right color, so I bought 2 little bottles. I can use those for touch-up paint. So we'll see how that works out. And at least that way maybe I can get a profit shot and get some paint, because I do need to touch up a lot on the roll cage, and there are some spots on the car that have chips and stuff, and it'd be nice to be able to touch all that stuff up. And so yes, that's about it. We're just waiting on the pistons to come in and get the motor assembled. I bought a set of headers from Holly that were K20 4x4 headers that were stainless, that they were discontinuing. They were blowing them out, so I went ahead and picked them up because it was a pretty decent price. But in the meantime, on Marketplace, I found a guy in Connecticut, of all places, selling NASCAR truck parts, and he had a set of NASCAR truck headers, which anybody that follows that series, they're running a spec LS engine now, and so I guess they've been doing that for a couple of years now. So he had them on a good price, and they're on their way to me. So those should fit right in the car. He gave me some measurements, and I measured a couple of the blocks I have here, and it looks like it should be perfect. It should go right in the chassis, and I'll probably have to make some small pieces to attach to the boom pipes, but I think it's going to work out real well. And stainless, which is something I kind of prefer, stainless on exhaust, because like these boom pipes, I haven't had the car on the lift yet, but I can see inside them and they're pretty nasty. So we may have to, or I may have to build a new set. If I do, I'll build them out of stainless also, so we don't have to worry about that ever being a problem again. But yes, that's kind of the updates on that. Get the motor put together and get it in the car. Been working on trying to figure out what. Oh, and let me finish that statement. Work out what year the chassis was. I'm kind of narrowing it down to somewhere between 88 and 92. So just trying to find other people's cars that have chassis numbers and kind of correlate what their chassis number is and what year their car is. I listened to an old podcast about a year old that Mike Laughlin did. He didn't talk to the public very often, and he happened to go onto this podcast, and he rambled on for about 2 hours. It was really fun to listen to. But one of the hosts did ask him roughly how many cars a year he was building, and he said roughly around 250 cars per year. So that kind of gives me an idea. If somebody tells me their car is a car 1000 or their car is a 900, I can kind of place it where this chassis would end up being in the manufacturing line. So going through some of that history, he ended up selling the company in 2004. I think that's when that Ortec manufacturing company took over, and for whatever reason they just don't have any of the older records. They pretty much only have probably the records from 2004 when they started. And so when I did talk to Ortec, they were saying their records started in the 1200s somewhere. So if they bought the place, well, that still doesn't work out either, because 250 cars a year, that would, in 2004, that wouldn't work out. But anyhow, maybe I'll try calling Ortec and see if he can tell me what the earliest record is and what year that is. That may help narrow it down. But anyway, the other thing I was going to mention is I did get in contact with 5-Star Race Bodies, and they have found all the templates for the windows, and they are getting them cut. So we should have brand new windows, windshield, back glass, and quarter glass in a couple weeks. So that's exciting. I'll go ahead and get the old beat up ones out of the car, and we can do a good cleaning on the car, and then we can start putting her back together. Got a couple things I need to paint inside, and then get this thing moving along. The years isn't flying by yet in reality, but it really is. I mean, we're already in the second week of January, and try to get this thing on the road. There's some big shows I'd like to have gotten the car to, which aren't going to make it, but there's some later on in the year that would be cool to take it to. And of course, I want to get it to a couple good guys and to LS Fest. So I don't have any time to waste. I need to get this thing rolling along. With that said, that's the update on the NASCAR. So on Joe's Camaro, like I said earlier, I got a couple things done on the car. Mirrors, got the headlights working, the headlight doors. They have electric doors, Detroit Speed kit on it, and they were hanging up and messing up. I got those straightened out, and just kind of going around tidying up things. Got the dash pad completely installed now. Getting carpets all lined up, and just all the little knickknacks that need to be done. I'm waiting on. Should have all the new door locks tomorrow, or all new locks. Putting all new locks in the car, and then I'll be able to finish the doors and the trunk, and the new shifter cable, which hopefully will be the correct one, and then we should be able to start driving the car and get some mileage on it. So we wrap this thing up. It needs to go to Joe's garage here as soon as we can. So that's what we're doing on there. So I did get the air intake done. That was a bit of fabrication. So we were trying to I moved the battery to the trunk. Well, let me step back one more spot. Joe kind of likes everything being symmetrical, and which I do too. And so we decided the air cleaner goes to one side because the battery was on the other side. It just wasn't going to look right. And so I came up with the idea of putting the battery in the trunk, obviously, and then making a Y pipe, so to speak, for air intake, and putting the air cleaners down in the corners behind the headlights. So that was our plan. And I bought a bunch of pre-made 4-inch Y pipes. That's what the throttle body was. Well, they wouldn't fit. Joe had bought a 3.5-inch Y that kind of fit, but I didn't really want to put a 3.5 into the throttle body, being it's a 4-inch. So I cut it all apart, and I went the 3.5 into a 4 into the throttle body, and I had some other 3.5 pieces here, and the car has some billet. All your early first-gen Camaros had these stiffener braces in the corners of the engine bay. They were round tube with crushed ends on them. Well, this car happened to have some billet aluminum ones, pretty nice looking pieces. So it was a perfect spot to put the heat shields to keep the engine heat away from the air cleaner. So that was my theory and what I wanted to do. So let me see. I guess this is it here. So let's go ahead and take a look at this slideshow I put together. So obviously, that's the Camaro for people that haven't seen the car before. LS3 535 Brian Tooley intake. That was when we were putting it together. It's got the Holley hidden valve covers to hide the coils. But there's the air intake. Now it's all been sanded and DA'd because Joe wants to either hydro dip it in carbon fiber or powder coated black. So we're still up in the air which way he's going to go with that. But Race Part Solutions, one of our great business people we deal with, they sent us the joints, the 45s in 3.5 and a 4-inch connector to connect everything up. And I was able to find a radiator hose that would reach around the air intake without being a two-piece. That was great. So a simple part number you can get right out of the parts store. So that's kind of what I came up with. You can see on the brackets, I drilled and tapped them from underneath, and then hung the aluminum panels in from there, and put rubber bead edging around all the sharp edges, and of course they'll get powder coated or hydro dipped, whatever Joe decides to do with that. But I think it came out real nice. Should set the car apart when he goes to shows and stuff. I think the way the Y lays out actually kind of worked out really cool. It up and over around the cooling fan, so the cooling fans will not blow hot air on it, and it kind of fit nicely between the radiator and the accessory drive. And I didn't get a shot at it, but it's real level and perpendicular to the top of the radiator. So from all angles you look at it, it looks really, really clean, I think. So that's what we came up with. That obviously was a couple days of fab work to get that finished up. And then, of course, I was 3/4 of the way done and dropped the thing and put a dent right in one of the corners, which I could not straighten out. So I ended up having to cut it apart and make it one whole side all over again. But that's how it goes. It was really no way of holding it down when sanding on it and stuff, because it's all fairly light aluminum, so you can't just go crazy on it. But I think it came out real nice, and it should work well for getting cool air in the engine and also being a nice focal point in the engine bay. So that was kind of what we got going on there. I think it came out real nice. So hopefully that Joe will enjoy it. He has not seen it yet, so hopefully when he comes by and sees it, will be good. And just have a couple little things. I got to put a coolant recovery can on it and a crankcase catch can, and that's pretty much it. Just start getting the tuning finished up. I gotta line the front end, set the brakes. I mean, I've idled it in and out of the shop a couple of times, so the brakes work. Just want to make sure, get road tested, and of course, you guys have heard me say before, I like to get 100 miles or so on the car before I give it back to them. So see how that all works out. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I'm glad you think it looks nice. I really appreciate that, and really take your thoughts to heart. I know you are one of those guys that just likes everything just so, and your work is extraordinary. So that's the sanding and stuff isn't something I do a lot of, but I was able to get her done. And I think it'll look real nice. I was telling Joe my thought was to do all the aluminum in red candy and then have them hydro dipped with carbon fiber. I thought that would look real nice. And since he's got the red valve covers on there and the red Willwood calipers, I thought that might go together. And maybe not candy, maybe just a matching red. But Joe has to talk to his hydro dip guy. I think his guys has concerns about trying to get the pattern of the carbon fiber to lay right. So we'll see how that all goes. Otherwise, it'll probably just get black powder coated. And we're still. Last time I talked to Joe, I mentioned the flat or the gloss. He was thinking gloss, and I mentioned a flat since the intake is flat. But we'll see how that goes. He's got a little bit of time to think about how he wants to do that. But at least we got filtration on the engine now, so I can drive it, not have to worry about getting something down in the engine. And as Ryan says, it's functional, so should work out real well. We'll see. I got the air intake temp sensor is in the pipe, so we'll see how it works for getting cold air into the engine. Hopefully it works out well. I know I had something similar on my 50 Chevy. It was just one single 4-inch pipe, but it did go between the engine radiator and the engine block, and it was pretty good. I could keep air temps about ambient. So when you're under hoods, in the 180s, that's really good. Yeah, Ryan says he likes the candy. Did a lot of that under the hood. Oh, the hood. Yeah. The 69 you sent pictures of. Yep. I understand now. Yeah, I think I've seen the hydro dip. I said the candy red because I've seen the hydro dip done with the candy colors underneath it, and it seems to really make the candy pop. Because let's face it, a hydro dip carbon fiber is not carbon fiber, and so my thought process is no sense trying to fool everybody and thinking that it's real carbon fiber. Just make it look real pretty and make it pop in the engine bay. So, and then of course some people would never know that it's not real anyway. So, we'll see how it works out. Hopefully Joe's hydro dip guy can do it. And I was telling Joe, as long as he gets the pattern good on the top side, if they overlap on the bottom where you don't see it, that's not going to be a game killer, because nobody's going to see that down there anyway. Even from underneath the car, you can barely see it with all the accessory drives, and of course the Camaro has quite a bit of cross members and stuff up in the front, so radiator fans and such. So it's nothing that would be harmful at all. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be updates in the near future. So I got the 4200 spare motor in the garage finally. It's been sitting in the back of the garage trucks the back of the pickup on for the grudge team. So finally got that in the garage. That was good. Been trying to get some organization around here. It seems like everything's kind of piling up a little bit, but it's good. It's all good. We'll get it all sorted out. With Joe's car getting ready to leave, and I've got the Chevelle up on the 4-post rack now, so it's getting ready to get going on the wiring harnesses and the plumbing. I started Saturday mapping out the AC lines and stuff, and realized that when we built the inner fenders, which, well, I can say we there because Dave and Chuck helped me on those. I had thought about a cutout for the hoses to go through the cowl and up and over into the fender well, and when I looked at, we got the car up on the rack and pulled the wheels off, I realized that I did not do that. So I'm going to go ahead and I got a nibbler. We're going to go ahead and trim up that stuff and make a passageway, then I can get the AC lines in, then I can get the AC case in, and start getting some of the hard parts mounted in the car, so when I start measuring out for my wiring lengths and stuff, I have something to measure to. So that will help when I get the video done. You'll see how I use a vacuum line, and you can kind of route it the way the wiring harness is going to go, so you can kind of get an idea how long it's going to be, and that way you can get everything, all your T trunks and stuff where wires separate off the main trunk. You can get that all figured out and get it all laid out before you put it in the car. So it's good to have all those accessories in the car. I've got the boots in the doors, and I got the wiring from the doors in coming out up under the dash, terminated to connectors. So that's all finished up and ready to roll. So making some slow progress on that thing. We had to put a new antenna mast in it. That one goes to the windshield. And for whatever reason, the old antenna or new antenna, whatever it was, it fell apart. I just bumped it putting sound deadener in the car, and it fell apart. So we went ahead and pulled that all apart. I had to pull the trim off the windshield and all that. And I've got a new cable in there, so that's good. And so we got the steering column in that thing now, and moving along. Mike's on. You typed a paragraph there, Mike. How much in advance do you have to draw up the plan? How much do you have to draw? Everything fits in the car the way you want it, and you have to build as you go to make it fit. I'm assuming you're talking about the wiring schematic and stuff. So what I like to do is I want all of the components before I start, and that way I can see what they're going to need. So like this, the Chevelle is getting remote control, door lock actuation, and well, it's got 4 functions. So I'll probably make the windows roll up and down from the handheld. So I want all that stuff before we get started. Because I want to, first of all, make sure that it's going to communicate with the other components, because these cars are hodgepodge with parts. You get all these components from different manufacturers, and we got to tie them all together and make them work. So that's what I like to do first. And then what I do is I kind of lay everything out on the tables, and I try to make a spreadsheet with each component, and then I kind of like make one sheet, the front of the car, and then one for like the dashboard portion of the car, and then one for the back of the car. And that way I can lay out all the components and the colors of the wiring and what they need to go to. And that way I can lay out my wiring harness, and then I can weed it out, because on this particular car we wanted to use a stock looking fuse panel that had the bulkhead connector that went through the firewall like stock. So we ended up with a painless harness kit. And that harness kit comes with every circuit that's available fully wired, and it just goes wherever they feel it's going to go, because obviously they don't have the car, they don't have the components, they don't know where they go. But I mean, all the way down even the speaker wire, they have speaker wire in the harness. So obviously I'm not going to put a harness in the car that has components wiring for components we're not using. So that's the next step I do is I take that painless harness and I start breaking it out into under the hood harness, under the dash harness, and then obviously you got door locks and windows and interior lighting, and then you have your taillight harness, which is going to have flex fuel sensor, third brake light if we're going to use it, fuel pump, and those kind of things. So trunk lights or whatever we're going to put in the car. So that's why I like to have all the components first, because that way I know, oh, we're putting a trunk light in, so I need to have that wire. Oh, we're using a third brake light. Okay, so we need to have that wire in. If we're not going to use it, I have two choices at that point. I could leave the wire in for a future use, or just remove it altogether and just call it a day. Now, typically, maybe like a third brake light, that wire I'd probably leave in anyway for future use, but anything else that would be in the harness that's not being used, I wouldn't leave it in the harness. Try to keep everything as nice and tidy as you can. You could always add a wire, a circuit to it later if you wanted to. Now, like on the painless under hood harness, it's got oil pressure, water temp, it's got brake bias warning. You've got obviously wipers, your horn, your lights, alternator feed, all those circuits. Now, when we're doing a Holley system with a Dakota Digital, we don't need all those sender wires going out because we get all the data from the Holley system, and then use the BIM CAN adapter that goes to the Dakota Digital dash. So with that, I don't need oil pressure, water temperature, all that stuff. So I can remove all that extra wiring. So it just cleans everything up. And then, of course, this, like on the Chevelle, we've got a LED lighting in the headlights. So now I need additional wiring for that. So those are the kind of things you want to look at that all ahead of time. And then we got vintage air conditioning in, which the painless harness is wired for air conditioning similar to how a OEM would have it. So they've got a power wire to the blower motor, and then they got wires going out and out to the clutch leads and all that stuff. But with the vintage air, they already have all that. All you need to do is attach a battery power source and a key switch source, and it's all self-contained in its own wiring. And the clutch wire has to go out to the dryer where they have a I just lost the name of it, but a binary and trinary pressure switches on the dryer. So you could make the painless wiring work, but to me it's easier just to use the vintage air wiring. If you've wired up vintage air or any of the aftermarket air conditioning, they seem to always use a blue wire for the clutch wire. So it's easier to run the clutch wire out with the hoses down the passenger side of the car, keep it all separated from the main harness, out to the dryer. Of course, the Holley has to connect to that wire because it wants to sense when the clutch is engaging and disengaging to actuate additional IAC counts so that the engine doesn't stumble when the clutch engages or disengages. It doesn't flare up. Works really nice once you set that up. The clutch can come in and out, and you don't even hear the engine change RPM. It's really cool the way they do that. So I go ahead and run all those wires out on a separate harness out the other side. Just makes it easier and cleaner, I think, rather than running everything out the driver's side and all the way around the car and all the way back around. Everything's on that side of the car, so just run it down that side of the car and run all the lighting. The only wires that go across the front would be the wires for the fans and for the lights on the passenger side, because everything will go out the driver's side, and your marker lights and turn signals and stuff like that. But that keeps that harness fairly small and clean. So then you go underneath the dash. And then that's where what I did on this car, and I do on a lot of them, is I'll put a bunch of zip tie hangers in the car. So you can't use the double-sided tape ones. They don't stay stuck up. So what I do is I get a large one from McMaster Car that does not have any backing on it. And then I can take a 3M cookie on the grinder, disc grinder, and make clean spots underneath the dash where you don't see it. And then I can take the 3M panel bond and panel bond them to the underside of the dashboard. Now I've got a good solid hold. I'll put probably 8 or 10 across there, so they're every couple inches. And that way the trunk lines can drop down between them. And each one of those with the panel bond would probably hold about 25 pounds of weight. So obviously the harness isn't going to go anywhere. And the other thing I think is really nice is when you stick your head underneath the dash, I don't know why you would, but if you would, or you're looking to work on the car or something like that, the wiring harness is at the top of the dashboard and the trunks are dropped down to each component. So it makes it really clean under the dash, because with the vintage air and the accordion AC line, AC vent hoses, and then you got your defrost hoses, it kind of gets really bundled up with that, with those AC components. So it makes it kind of gets messy with the wiring harness. So this way the wiring harness is all up high, out of the way, and the only thing that's towards the bottom is the AC hoses. And I don't know if anybody, if any of you guys have installed one of those kits. Has anybody tried making hard tubing to go in between? You know, like on a factory car, you've got hard plastic trunk lines basically to all the vents. And I've always thought about doing something like that with the AC system, where you just have that flexible stuff to connect from the evaporator to the trunk line and just have a small piece at the end. I thought that would really clean up underneath the dash. I know nobody really sees that stuff, and it's probably to some people probably a waste of time, but to me, you know, whenever I'm doing anything on these cars, I'm thinking about how hard is it going to be to work on this car when I'm all done and the car's all assembled. So to me, if I could clean up those AC hoses, that would really be a big benefit. So like on the way I wire it, the dash cluster and all that stuff, you'll be able to drop the column down, you'll be able to pull that whole cluster out and unplug a couple connectors, and the whole dash cluster will come out with the gauges and everything intact, the AC controls and all that, the radio, stereo and everything. And you know, you can just disconnect the connects and pull the thing out, and you'll have your wiring on the back side of the dashboard on the cluster there, and that would give you access to work on the other components inside the car. So just to me, it makes it very clean. Ryan says the 3M panel bond is some strong shit. Yeah, I use it on a lot of applications. Yeah, I've grown quite fond of it, actually. On the Grudge car, I put a carbon air pan in the scoop, and back in the day, we would actually pop rivet with aircraft rivets, aluminum L's, and then the panel would sit in there, and then I'd, use smash rivets, and then you'd have to repaint the scoop to hide the countersunk smash rivets. And I hated doing that, especially when a car is already painted, and they go from a 2-barrel to 2.4s to a single 4, or vice versa, or whatever, or just putting an air pan in for the first time. I just always hated having to mess with that. So when I did this one, let me step back a bit. When I did the Ambassador, the Gasser car, a couple of years ago, Mike at Ravenswood Paint and Body, he did all the body work and paint work. Well, there was some AC openings or heater openings on the firewall that they didn't fill because they weren't sure if anything was going to be needed for that. And I ran everything inside the fenders, so you didn't see any of that stuff. So he went ahead and made some panels and painted it the white, the flat white that the firewall was, and he gave me some panel bond. And he says, just scuff it up, panel it, stick it in, and so I did that, and you could see the pieces on the firewall were nice and clean. You could see that there was a break. A piece was put in from behind, but it's all matched and looked nice and clean and looked like it was supposed to be that way. So I got talking to him about the panel bond, and I know my dad used to use the panel bond putting cars together at the dealership, but I really never messed with it and really never thought about it for our functions. But so after doing that, when I did this hood scoop, a light bulb went off and said, wait a minute, we can put this panel bond in there, and that's what I did. Bill's on. I'm not sure which Bill that is. That Bill Bolus? So anyhow, so I put the carbon piece in, made it fit nice and tight, used a double-sided, or not double-sided, used a 2-inch 3M tape and taped up all the joints so the piece was in firm. Hi, okay, Bill Bolus. Yeah, hi, man. So then I was able to take the panel bond in the tube and just make a nice bead all the way around, and took a tongue depressor, which has got a nice round tip on it, and kind of worked it all in and let that set up. I took a couple strips of aluminum angles that I made, just 1 inch long, quarter by quarter, and drilled a bunch of holes in it, and was able to push that down into the panel bond, and then panel bond over top of it to lock it all in. So I only put like 4 of those in the whole thing. And then once that cured, I peeled the tape off the inside, and then I panel bond the inside. And again, with a tongue depressor, was able to make a nice rolled edging around, and that thing's been holding in there for 2 seasons. The hood scoop coming on and off and all that, and it is yet to fail. And there's really, the only thing that's really holding it in there is some panel bond. I mean, it wasn't a piece on piece. It's just, normally a panel, you'd have your substrate, and you put your panel on top of it, and then panel bond goes between, so it's locked in. This is done like this with just a little bit of panel bond in the corners, and held it in magnificently. So as Ryan says, that stuff is super strong. And since then, I've used it on a bunch of different projects. I get something I need to hold together, boom. And of course, now I'm using it on these zip tie mounts, which is awesome, because I loved using them when they had the double side tape, but I would always run a popper of it through the center of them to hold them, because, like I said before, the double side tape would never hold. But I could never do it to the top of the dash, because you'd have a popper of it coming through, and when you look at the dash, you'd see the tail end of the popper of it coming through. That would never work. You couldn't body work that out or anything. So it always left me with wanting to find a better way of doing it. And then once we got introduced with this panel bond, that's some stuff. And I mean, I've put a piece of mechanics wire through one, and I mean, you'll break the plastic zip tie mount before you pull that thing off the panel bond, or pull the panel bond off the steel. So that's working out great. And of course, on the Vet Hawk, when we put all the body panels on that, I'm gonna be using a lot of panel bond on that. So that's really cool. I really like using that stuff. So anyway, kind of got off topic on that. So excuse me. So yeah, so everything inside the car, off the main wiring harness trunk line, we'll put either GT150 connectors, or 280s, or 640s, whatever the amperage is. Get the right weather pack or Delphi connector to handle the amperage. But that way, like even the wiring going down to the console, stereo, amps, any of those things that are in the car, the wiring going to the doors, I can't tell you how many cars I've worked on that we needed to get the door, maybe a crash repair or something like that. But for some reason, we needed to remove the door from the car. And you look up underneath the dash, and there's no connector. It's wired solid all the way from the power window motor and switches all the way to the fuse box with no break. That's okay, but it makes it really hard to work on. And then now the car's completely assembled, and you're trying to get connecting pliers up under the dash and trying to make put connectors in, and there's no room to work, and it's just crazy. So I like to do it all when I install the harnesses. I haven't done it yet. I really want to start putting a bulkhead connector at the firewall for the EFI stuff. I'm still running one line out to there, and that is coming from the ECU. So that is one section where you do have to pull the harness off. If you're going to pull the engine out, you have to pull the harness, slide it back out of the intake and stuff. So that's something I am going to work on. I know on the Vethawk I'm going to do it, because on the Vethawk, if the connectors are seen, that's okay with me. I'm okay with that. The car's going to be a performance/race car, and to me, bulkhead connectors say race car, so I don't have a worry about that. But for the show cars where we're trying to hide everything, it makes it a little bit tougher to use a bulkhead connector. But I definitely, it's on my things to do list to try to figure out a way of doing it where it makes sense. Most of the time, even with the Holley harnesses, I take them back apart anyway. So the same thing what I do with the regular harness is what I do with the EFI harness. I have the ECU mounted. I have my grommet I usually do it in the tunnel where the harness is going to go through, and then let the harness come back up over the top of the back of the engine block. So then I use my vacuum hose, and that's how I get all my routing. So I'll go from the connector and let it go down the way it's going to go to the bulkhead grommet, and then write that measurement down, and then from under the hood, from the bulkhead grommet to each accessory, TPS, IAC, coolant temp, intake air temp, map sensor, oil pressure, fuel pressure, whatever it is, whatever we're going to put sensors on. And then I can put the harness on a table, and I can put mark the table and mark the harness where that grommet's going to be. And then from there, I can build the rest of the exterior harness so that when it's all done, it fits in the car, it makes sense. And as you guys saw on Joe's Camaro, you can't hardly even see any of the harnesses there. And yet we still have a complete EFI system going. So, I'm not trying to hide everything, but I'm just trying to make it super clean. I want, when people look under the hood, they're at a car show or something looking at Joe's car, I want them to have to hunt where the wiring is. So that's just the way we kind of, I like doing it. It makes it clean. So now that we have the dashboard section figured out, then we go to the back of the car. And as I showed you a couple episodes ago on Joe's car, where I put the bulkhead connector for the battery cables. So that's what we do. I run all the taillight and all that stuff, all that harness down the driver's side, and then the battery cables up the passenger side. Now with the Holley system, you have two 10s, a black and a ground and a power. And then there's in the harness, they leave it so you can hook it anywhere you want to, but I go ahead and run a small black and 22 gauge and a 20 gauge red, which are power ups for relays and such. I go ahead and run them all the way to the back too, and then of course the fuel pump trigger wire, and I run all that on the battery cable side. And then when you put your carpet and door panels, everything in, you don't see any of it. And the bulkhead connector mounted on the floor right near the starter, that works out real well. And then just a short section of wire, battery cable to the starter, and that's all down underneath everything, behind the headers and all that stuff. So it's all basically, it's not hidden, but it's hidden in plain sight. If you look for it, it's there, but you have to look for it. So that's the way I do it, and that's the way I kind of line it up. So Mike, I hope that kind of answered. It was a long, drawn-out way of answering your question, but that's the way I do it. And I will be putting this wiring harness program together soon, or video when this car is done. I'm going to document the entire build on that so that we can have that out. People be able to check that video out, and then be able to see how I did it and the thought process, and try to make it to where wiring is not so scary. It's just like doing anything else, assembling an engine, assembling a transmission, a differential, bolting sheet metal onto the body. You have to plan out the way you want to go, and then just move through your processes. And if you pre-plan, it goes real well. Mike says he got it. Good deal. But yeah, I think that works out real well doing it that way. A long while ago, probably 10 episodes ago, I showed the panel I make that goes behind the dash to hold all the ECU and all the Dakota Digital brain boxes. They're probably ECUs actually. So that way everything's mounted up and nice and clean, and that's one thing that I didn't do on Joe's car. We did not wire that car. So that car, I cleaned it up as much as I could, but it's kind of hard when you're dealing with a stock harness. It's kind of crazy the way they build those stock harnesses. There's stuff, there's wires going from one end of the car to the other end of the car, back and forth, and they didn't really need to do that. But I guess because the harnesses are built for multiple options and multiple platforms, they kind of got to do that. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I like to plan out all the components first, so that way we don't have redundancies. Nothing crazier to take a harness apart and find out that there's a splice, let's just say on an engine management system, ECU, 3 feet away from the ECU, there's a splice, and then there's a ground or a power trigger wire running all the way back almost to the ECU. It's like, why didn't they just plan it and put the splice at the ECU? And then that way you'd only have, you would eliminate a bunch of wiring in a harness. Because you could put a splice at the beginning and then run a little heavier gauge wire out to where you trunk off and then splice again. So it would be one wire instead of maybe 2 or 3 wires in the harness. So just the way I look at it, I am not a master car wiring guy at all. Just like everybody else, well, not like everybody else, but I've done a bunch of car wiring, and every one I do, I think I get a little bit better and a little bit more proficient, and which is my goal. And then that's why I think when we do the Chevelle, I can make a pretty good installation video, because I believe I've been, last couple I've done, I've kind of got them cleaned up to where I think, it's a clean, doable system. When I don't always use the painless kits. They work really well, especially for the guy that maybe it's first time, because the wiring is all labeled. So, when you get to the back of the car, you can not only see the color of the wire, but there's also identification. And Painless does do a nice job. They put a circuit number on everything. So, it is a nice system. Don't get me wrong. Typically, on a car like when I did my 50, it didn't have hardly any electric accessories inside the car. So for me, I felt to put a painless harness in there was kind of a little bit of a waste of money, because their car harnesses were normally 12 circuits, and I only needed like 4. So I would end up weeding out all this extra wiring for circuits that I didn't need, and that I paid for. So a lot of times we'll buy just a universal 6, 8, 10 circuit fuse panel kit. There's a bunch of companies out there that make them. U.S. Wiring, I just came to the top of my head, but Ron Francis. There's a lot of them out there that make those kind of kits. And to me, like the one I put in the Chevy, it was I think it was a 8 circuit, and I think the harness was $135. And they did label the wiring just like the painless did. They didn't put circuit numbers on it, and the labeling wasn't maybe as clear on some of the wires, but it worked great, and I didn't have to waste a lot of money that I wasn't going to end up using. So, again, the first thing you have to do is plan out your entire system, and that's going to tell you, how many circuits you're going to need and how nice of a harness you need to make. For me, if you're building a performance car, it makes no sense to put a stock replacement wiring harness in the car, because again, there's going to be tons of circuits in there that you're not going to need, especially an OE replacement harness, because your heating or HVAC harnesses, there's all kinds of wiring in there for the factory stuff, but almost everybody uses an aftermarket AC system. And the newer systems, Old Air Products, Vintage Air, Classic Auto Air, I'm sure there's 2 or 3 others I'm forgetting. They're all running their own ECU to control all the electric motors. All these companies now have all caught on the OEM stuff, and they're using these little dashpot motors that the OE manufacturers have been using for like the last 15, 18 years to run your heat doors and blend doors and defrost and stuff like that. Back in the day, we had cables that ran back there, and they flopped the doors. You flip the cable, and you'd hear the door shut. And then if you, of course, that would happen no matter what you did. But stuff falls down the defrost vents, and then it jams the doors up and whatever. So the OEs all got to get rid of the clutter under the dash, because they got more stuff to put under there. They went to these little servo motors, and everything's run by millivolts. So all your aftermarket AC companies have all adopted that. So now the heater control motor's got a motor on it, and you've got your heat, defrost, and main vent. That's got a motor on it, and then you got your blend door for hot to cold. That's got a motor on it, and then they put a little ECU board on there, and it's really nice because now they've got millivolt switches that you can put in the factory location where your cables used to go, and now it becomes a potentiometer for the ECU to make the motors move. So that cleans up a lot of stuff. But what I was getting at was, if you bought a wiring harness, an OEM harness, it's going to have all that stuff for the blower motor and heater control and AC control that you don't need any of that now, because the AC is all so you end up kind of wasting your money. And of course, it just doesn't, they always fit in real good. The OE replacement harnesses, they usually leave a little extra excess on everything to make it fit. Well, then you end up with this harness that's rolling up and around the steering column and up and over brackets and this and that, because there's so much wire, you have nowhere to put it. It's very similar to any of the programmable fuel injection systems. If you buy their main harnesses, they're making it to fit multiple different platforms. So they have to give you extra wire, and just figure, well, you'll figure it out. So that's why I take them all apart and cut them all apart and remake it, because it makes it a lot more sense to have it fit the vehicle than just to have wires twisted around and balled up and zip tied together, trying to clean the clutter up, So that's the way we do it. And hopefully it all makes sense. I'm sure Mike said it did, so I'm sure all you guys got it. I know Bill got it because he's been messing around with that Dominator in his car. And that's one of those times when he started with an HP, and now he's got a Dominator. Now he's got all these additional injector circuits, and he's got all these sensors that he didn't have before. So it does make it tough. You start adding on and adding on and adding on. Next thing you know, everything gets pretty cluttered up pretty quick. Bill did a real nice job on his car. It isn't cluttered, but it just, to start fresh, is really nice. And then it all makes sense. See, John Roberts is on. Hey, John. John's a local guy. Earlier in the show, I showed the new Falcon RT615K Plus tires. Now, they're not new to you guys, or new to market, but they're new to me. I just bought a set for the Nascar, and I was just mentioning that a guy, Drew, that I've known since he was in high school, lost, really didn't lose contact. We just, he was just a guy in high school that come by the shop every now and then. He's now has his own shop, and I reached out on Facebook, and he hooked me up on a set of tires, and I was able to help a local business out rather than buying them from the big mail orders. So I just like doing that if I can. Mike says, I learned a little from watching you back in the DNR days. Yeah, and those weren't really, we really didn't rewire anything back then. We were just doing repairs and stuff like that. If you go back and look at the video on the channel for the Badasseter, the American Motors Ambassador, it's a gasser they call Badasseter. You can see I did get some video, not very good video, but I did get some. I scanned under the dash of the harness that was in that car, and how clean it came out. It was nice because when Mike at Ravenswood painted the car, all the underneath of the dash is all painted in that flat white, so it really makes it bright underneath the dash. So it came out pretty clean. It was the owner of the car used individual gauges for all the instrumentation in the car, which is it's hard to make that look clean because you got 6 gauges in a row, and you got power wire and light wire and ground wire and sensor wire and everything, and of course in that car each gauge went into the dash individually, so you couldn't make a complete harness and just put the whole dash cluster in. So you had to put the cluster in and build the harness once the gauges were in the dash from underneath. So kind of made that a little tough. So it didn't come out as clean as I'd like to have, but it gives you the idea of how, with the main lines and trunk lines dropping off to each accessory and stuff like that. Kind of cool how it all works out. Hopefully, I get this video done. I get the car done and get the video done for the Chevelle, and I hope everybody gets a lot of information out of that. And so I guess I haven't heard a cancellation from Bill yet. So I guess we are going Orlando Friday for a test with his 33, and so next week I can show you some data recording and go through some of the fuel tuning that we will do. It will be past tense next Tuesday, but right now it's future tense. But yeah, so that'll be hopefully be interesting going through the Holly system and what we're doing with that. And for you 4200 guys, I hopefully this week I'll get with Leo and we'll try to come up with a game plan of what we're going to do now when the next event at Bradenton we can get to, because I know they're having the Snowbird Nationals are coming up, and then they have the NHRA Pro group. So in NHRA, all the pro classes, they have owners, drivers, organization that deals with the sanctioning body. So Wes from Drag Illustrated has been putting on these big dollar bracket race, big dollar pro mod races, and this spring before the Gator Nationals, he's putting on a big dollar gamble race with top fuel dragsters and funny cars and pro mods. So that's going to be really exciting. Of course, it's kind of messing up all of our time to get on the track because they got these big events coming up, and the pros are coming to test because there's big money at stake. I believe for top fuel dragster and top fuel funny car, it's $100,000 to win, which is probably 3 times the amount of money they make in an NHRA a national event, and it's going to be pretty cool. I've heard. Don't hold me to it, but I've heard that they're going to draw out of a bucket like NPK. So that'll be really interesting to see who matches up with who on the bucket draws. It's going to be really cool. And of course, they're adding Pro Mod, and I think they might be doing a no time class. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that. I've been kind of watching it. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it to the event, so I haven't been paying as much attention as I probably should have to it. But I see Chris is here. Hey, Chris, how you doing? Mike says, how in the world do you remember to turn on the camera? I can't even get the habit of having mine. It's tough. I mean, I went over to Arcadia and put the turbo on Leo's car, and then we put the front end on and put it in the trailer. I didn't get one stick of video on any of it. And unfortunately, if you watch some of my videos, sometimes there's gaps in there, and that's why, because I forgot to turn the camera on, or the SD card was corrupt and it didn't record, or I had on some of those fast forward videos, I would get lost in with my camera. If you hit the button, it starts recording, but it may not show it right away. So I'd hit the button again, and it would stop recording. Then I didn't know it would stop recording, and I'd go ahead and start working, and it never got any of it. So yeah, that is problematic. It would be really nice to be able to have a videographer that followed me around like all the TV shows do. Videos would probably be a whole lot more interesting, but I don't. And so I got to try to remember to do it. So that's the game plan. I'm hoping to pick up a couple more cameras here soon. So hopefully get to the point where if you have enough cameras rolling, you'll catch what you need to catch. And the other thing that's kind of helped a little bit too is that with the polls and talking to you guys on the live stream, it seems that some of the fast forward stuff is kind of I wouldn't say boring, but it kind of just doesn't. You're working in fast motion anyways. You're really not seeing what's going on. It just and ever since we made the decision, everybody, you guys that are watching and myself, made the decision to cut back on how much of the fast forward time lapse stuff I do. I find myself fast forwarding on other people's channels when they do the fast forward motion, because it's right. It is not boring, but you want to see the meat and potatoes. Tell me what you're doing. Show me something that's trick, or it was complicated, or it went wrong, and really don't need to see that. So I mean, that's how I'm trying to work all the future videos. I've been playing around with you guys on the lives with stills. I think that might help a little bit sometimes during the videos. So we'll see. I got a second monitor for my birthday, so I don't have it wired in yet, but I'm hoping that's going to help. One, it's going to help on the live shows because I can put the streaming stuff on one screen and the stuff I want to show you guys on the other screen, and that way it will be a lot cleaner. We won't have to worry about whether I got the right page up and if you got to hear the sound and all that stuff, because it will all be the main monitor will be all that stuff that we're using on the show, and the second monitor would be stuff we're using for making the show. And I'm hoping the same thing with editing. I'm hoping I can use my shortcut software on the bottom screen, but then I can go through my files and look for what piece of information I want to put in next, so that it hopefully it'll speed up the editing time. Right now, if anybody used Shotcut, or probably most video editing software, you have a playlist and you have all your videos over there, or pictures, or whatever you're going to use, text or whatever you're going to use in your video, and you click on each one, put it in the timeline, and make it all blend together. But the problem is you get, especially on some of these builds, I might have 30 or 40 files that may only be a minute long or whatever, and so I can't remember which one's which, so then I have to drop it in the timeline. Oh, I don't like that one, or I'm using it and later I find the one I really wanted, and now I got to break the whole timeline apart to put that piece back in. So I'm hoping with the second screen that's going to help out. I can put multiple thumbnails up there, and I can open and close them and decide what goes in the timeline and what have you. So we'll see how that works. I got a bunch of editing I need to get done. I've kind of been letting that go to the side. I need to get back on editing, so you guys have some new videos to watch. So that's something we're going to work on, and we'll go from there. So I see it's 8 o'clock. My wife didn't work today, so she's home, and she's probably, bless her heart, probably waiting for me to come in and eat dinner. So I guess we will call it quits for tonight. I appreciate everybody on the chat and everybody watching on YouTube. Thank you, and hopefully we'll have some drag race information next week from Bill's car. Hopefully the weather breaks and we can get on the track, and when we get some information on Leo's, when we get back on the track there, I'll post that information. And we got parts. We're working on the Vegas, or the NASCAR, so we'll do that. Andy says, good chat. Happy birthday, George. Thank you. People make a big deal about it. To me, I tell my wife all the time, it drives her crazy. I said, you don't get 1 year older on your birthday. You get 1 day older every day. So it's just another day. But anyway, I digress. So Mike, have a good night, Mike said. So hope you guys all have a good week, and hope to see everybody back next Tuesday. And I think that's it. Peace. Okay, let me get this video going.